I didn't find out my parents sold my daughter's cello from them. I found out when a stranger emailed me a link and said, "Is this your family's instrument? It just sold for $87,000. That cello wasn't just wooden strings, it was my daughter's safe place. It carried her through grief, growth, and quiet nights when words failed her. I trusted my parents to protect it while we rebuilt our lives. Instead, they made a decision behind closed doors that shattered trust, exposed greed, and taught me a lesson about boundaries I'll never forget. When the cello went missing, it didn't happen all at once. It started as a quiet absence, the kind you only notice when you're not looking for it. One afternoon my daughter went to the corner of the room where it always rested, reached out automatically, and froze. She checked behind the chair, then under the table, then looked at me with that small, uncertain smile children use when they're hoping they're just mistaken. I told her not to worry, that it was probably somewhere safe, that we'd find it. At the time, I truly believed that. When I asked my parents, their response was effortless, almost rehearsed. Probably moved for storage, they said, waving it off like it was nothing more than a winter coat or an old box of books. No hesitation. No concern. And because they were my parents, because they were the people who had taught me right from wrong, who had scolded me for lying even about small things, I accepted their answer without pushing further. Who suspects betrayal from the people who raised you? Trust felt automatic, almost instinctive. But days passed, and the corner of the room stayed empty. My daughter began lingering there, staring at the space where the cello used to be, as if expecting it to reappear. She asked me gently at first, then less often, then not at all. She stopped warming up in the evenings. The music that once drifted through our home faded into silence. I noticed her fingers still moving sometimes. Unconsciously practicing in the air, muscle memory refusing to let go. What hurt most was watching her blame herself. She replayed the last time she'd practiced, wondering out loud if she'd left it somewhere she shouldn't have, if she hadn't taken care of it properly. She apologized to me more than once, her voice tight with guilt, even though she'd done nothing wrong. I reassured her every time, but doubt has a way of settling in when answers don't come. I started searching more seriously. Opening closets, checking the garage, even going through old storage boxes that hadn't been touched in years. Each empty space made the casual explanation feel thinner, more fragile. Still, I didn't confront my parents again. Part of me didn't want to. Asking harder questions meant admitting that something wasn't right, and that was a truth I wasn't ready to face. The house felt different without the cello. Even the air seemed quieter, heavier. Practice time used to be a ritual, a moment of focus and calm for my daughter after long days. Without it, she seemed adrift, unsure of what to do with herself. Her confidence dimmed in small ways, hesitation before speaking, a reluctance to talk about music at all. Looking back, that was the moment everything began to fracture, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, through avoidance and misplaced trust. The missing cello wasn't just an object that vanished. It was the first crack in my belief that love and loyalty were guaranteed simply because someone was family. Weeks later, an email arrived from a classical instrument collector, and at first, I almost ignored it. The subject line was polite, almost harmless, asking if I had any connection to a particular cello listed in a recent auction. I opened it casually, expecting spam or a mistake, but the moment the images loaded, my stomach dropped. There it was. The software near the bridge where my daughter's fingers had slipped during long practice sessions. The tiny scratch along the side from the day she tripped rushing into her first recital. Every mark told a story I knew by heart, and no amount of denial could convince me otherwise. The description beneath the photos was written with reverence. The collector praised the cello's rare craftsmanship, the balance of its tone, and the way its sound carried warmth even in large halls. They spoke of aged wood, masterful construction, and a history that elevated it far beyond an ordinary instrument. Reading those words felt surreal. To them, it was a treasure newly discovered. To me, it was a piece of my child's life, reduced to a catalog entry and a final bid. As I scrolled, my hands began to shake. The auction details were clear, precise, and undeniable. The sale price stared back at me in bold numbers, making it impossible to pretend there had been a misunderstanding. That was the moment reality finally hit with full force. My parents hadn't misplaced the cello. It hadn't been moved for safekeeping or loaned to someone temporarily. They had sold it. Quietly, deliberately, and without a single conversation with us. What hurt most wasn't the money, though the amount made my chest tighten. It was the planning behind it. Someone had researched its value, contacted the right people, arranged the appraisal, and followed through with the sale. This wasn't an accident or a desperate impulse. It was a series of conscious choices made in silence, while my daughter wondered why her music had suddenly disappeared from her life. I kept rereading the email, hoping I had misunderstood something, hoping there was a logical explanation that didn't involve betrayal. But every sentence confirmed the truth. The collector even mentioned how smoothly the transaction had gone, how the seller seemed eager and well prepared. Each word felt like another door closing, another layer of trust peeling away. Sitting there, I realized how easily people can rewrite a story when they think no one will ever read it. To the outside world, the sale was clean, professional, and impressive. Behind it, there was a child who had lost her instrument and parents who believed their decision would remain invisible. That email didn't just reveal where the cello had gone. It exposed how quietly trust can be broken, how carefully secrets can be packaged, and how devastating the truth feels when it finally lands in your inbox without warning. When I finally confronted them, there was no pause, no moment of shame. Only excuses lined up like a shield. They said they needed the money, as if urgency erased permission. They said my daughter wasn't using the cello properly, as if a child's growth must follow their timeline to have value. Then came the line that hurt the most: it was just an object. Just wood. Just strings. As if meaning can be measured only by resale price. But it wasn't just an object. It was my daughter's voice in a house where she often felt unheard. That cello had been her way of speaking when words were too heavy, when emotions tangled in her chest and came out more clearly through music than conversation ever could. Every note carried her patience, her discipline, her hope. Watching someone reduce that to a line item on a balance sheet felt like watching them erase a part of her identity. What hurt even more was the realization dawning in her eyes as she listened from the doorway. She wasn't crying yet, she was confused. She kept waiting for an explanation that would make it make sense, something that would tell her this wasn't a choice made against her. But no explanation came. In that moment, she learned a truth no child should have to learn so young: that adults can betray trust without raising their voices, and that love doesn't always protect what matters most. They spoke about survival, about responsibility, about practicality. But they never spoke about asking. They never spoke about respect. They never once acknowledged that the cello didn't belong to them, not legally, not emotionally. It belonged to a girl who practiced until her fingers hurt, who played softly when the world felt loud, who believed that the people around her would guard what she couldn't protect herself. I watched my daughter's shoulders slump as the conversation dragged on. It wasn't the loss of the instrument that broke her, it was the way her passion had been dismissed so casually. When someone you trust tells you that what you love is just an object, what they're really saying is that your feelings are optional. That your effort is negotiable. That your dreams rank below convenience. That night, she didn't ask for the cello back. She didn't yell or argue. She simply asked why no one thought to talk to her first. And that question hung in the air unanswered, because there was no excuse big enough to cover it. In that silence, I understood something clearly. The real damage wasn't financial, and it wasn't about a missing instrument. It was about a line being crossed, one where authority replaced care and money outweighed meaning. That moment changed how I saw my parents, but it also changed how I saw my role. I realized that protecting my child isn't only about providing, it's about defending the things that give her a sense of self. I couldn't undo what had been sold, but I could make sure she learned this. Her voice matters, her passions matter, and no one gets to decide their worth for her. Instead of letting bitterness win, I made a choice, a quiet one at first, made in the middle of sleepless nights and long conversations I never wanted to have. Anger was easy. Blame came naturally. But I realized that if I let rage drive me, my daughter would inherit not just a loss, but a wound that would shape how she trusted the world. So I chose clarity over chaos. I gathered the truth piece by piece, not to punish, but to protect what still mattered. I went back through emails, storage agreements, old photos, and every document tied to that cello. Each record wasn't just proof, it was grounding. It reminded me that facts have weight, even when emotions feel overwhelming. I reached out to people I once hesitated to involve, friends, musicians, mentors, and professionals who understood both the legal and emotional value of what had been taken. Their support didn't arrive as dramatic rescues, it came as steady reassurance that I wasn't wrong for standing up, that boundaries were not acts of betrayal but acts of responsibility. Financial recovery was only part of the journey, and honestly, it wasn't the hardest part. The real work was rebuilding a sense of safety for my daughter. She had learned, too young, that adults could make decisions about her life without her voice. So I involved her in every step I could. I explained what was happening in words she could understand. I listened when she said she felt small, or invisible, or afraid to care about something again. Together, we turned confusion into understanding, and fear into resilience. Slowly, something shifted. The story stopped being about what was taken and became about what we refused to lose. My daughter began to see that her passion wasn't fragile, even if the instrument was gone. She learned that her value didn't rise or fall based on other people's choices, and that dreams don't need permission to exist. Watching her regain confidence, watching her pick up music again without apology, was worth more than any number attached to an auction listing. As for me, I learned that reclaiming control doesn't always look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it looks like refusing to stay silent. Sometimes it looks like asking for help. And sometimes it means choosing growth when bitterness feels justified. We didn't just recover what was lost, we built something stronger in its place. Trust in ourselves, faith in the future, and the unshakable understanding that what truly belongs to us can't be sold out from under us ever again. That $87,000 auction didn't just expose a betrayal, it revealed our strength. Family isn't defined by blood alone, but by respect, honesty, and care. And sometimes, losing something precious teaches you how powerful you truly are when you stand up, for yourself, and for your children.